Hi, I'm Anthony Originello, CEO of the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources for BC and Yukon. We represent more than 8,000 members, and as the organization dedicated to advancing the HR profession through education, advocacy, awareness, professional development, as well as our recognized and impactful CPHR designation, we are proud to be a sponsor of this show. We have been the voice of the HR profession since 1942. Learn more about us at cphrbc.ca.
In this edition of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by Dr. Gifford-Jones. Yes, he's a doctor, he's an author, he's a columnist, and he is a business person, having developed not one, but at least two or more vitamin C products that are beneficial to your health. Dr. Gifford-Jones, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
How do you describe what your job is today?
I guess to keep people healthy and follow a good lifestyle. You're lucky if you inherit good genes. The luck of the Irish sometimes comes into counterplay in longevity. But if you have the luck of the Irish and follow a good lifestyle, exercise, don't smoke, drink a little bit of alcohol, and keep your weight. Go on the scale every day. In fact, I go on the scale morning and bedtime just to make sure I remain the same weight. And when I was in high school, I weighed 125 pounds. I weigh 125 pounds today.
So you say your job is to help keep people healthy. What are the elements of that job? Like, in which ways do you help other people to remain healthy or get healthy?
Well, to follow a good lifestyle in terms of nutrition, people are filling their bodies with a lot of junk food, much too sugar. The average person in Canada takes about 15 teaspoons of sugar every day. 15 teaspoons. That's a lot of sugar. And it's producing obesity and the sugar belly and all the health diseases that go along with it.
So in this segment, of course, we're kind of talking about your job. So you do interviews, you write columns, you're writing books, you're out encouraging people. What does an average day look like for you with regards to the work that you're doing to be able to produce and create all of this information that is beneficial to others?
Well, I suppose being in a senior residence where there are tons of things to do. They have 2 movies a day. They have exercise products. They have how to keep healthy in other ways. But I really don't get involved in the nitty gritty of what goes on in this organization. I would go bonkers, absolutely bonkers, and take a slow boat to China rather than live here and do nothing. So that being active is part of the answer, and not eating a lot of junk food.
How much of your day, however, is devoted to writing?
Well, I'm writing every day. You just don't sit down and write a 600-word column immediately. You do your research, and that takes a lot of time. You write the column, then you look at it, you say, no, that's not good enough. So you write it again until you get it right. So it's very, very time consuming. I laugh at some people who say, oh, does it take half an hour to write a column? And Lordy, it takes several hours to write a column, or write a good one.
Yeah. So let's talk about your career. You go to university. Where'd you go to university, and what did you study?
I went to the University of Toronto, taking actually a general arts course with pre-med. And when I got through 3 years of that, I was damn lucky that I applied to the Harvard Medical School and got in. And I think the only reason I got in, a professor wanted me to become an ichthyologist. And I went into I had nothing else better to do at that time, so I went to Northern Canada, lived in a tent for 3 months in the summer doing fish research. And he wrote one hell of a good letter for me. And I think if I hadn't had that, I would never have gotten into the Harvard Medical School. And when I got into the medical school, I found out there was one hell of a lot of bright students there, and it was tough.
So you graduated from Harvard. What then did you do with your career?
Well, when I graduated from Harvard, I was in fact before I graduated, I had some time off, and I became a ship's doctor. I had a month free of doing surgery, and brought back 800 very sick people from Germany to Canada, and that gave me some money. And then I got some more money working as the hotel doctor at the Manoir Richelieu, and that was a wonderful job for 3 months in the summer. And I think I made $3,000, and that gave me enough money to go back to Harvard and do another 3 years of gynecological surgery. So I lived a rather different lifestyle than some people.
So you complete that next chapter of your life at Harvard. Then what'd you do?
Well, I went to the University of Rochester for a year in general surgery. And after that, I went to the Montreal General Hospital at McGill and took another year of surgery. And then went back to Harvard and did 3 more years of surgery. So I ended up with internship of about 5 years. I started to practice medicine when I was 32 years of age.
Where were you practicing?
Well, along the Niagara River in Niagara Falls. And it was my hometown. I loved the atmosphere of being along a river with lots of land for the kids. I practiced there for 25 years, but I was always going back and forth to Toronto because I was writing a column for the Globe and Mail at that time. And I burned up the highway getting back to Toronto many times. And at that point, I was ready to take on another exercise, and got appointed to teach surgery at the Montreal, at the Toronto General Hospital, and also at one of their affiliated hospitals. So that took me back to medical practice in Toronto, and my wife was delighted because she was a Toronto girl. Wanted to get back to Toronto.
And during that time, you had already started to write your column. What year did you start writing your column?
I started writing my column in 2 years after I started my practice in Niagara Falls.
Wow!
And,
so you've been writing that column for a long time.
Yeah, I must say that I was trained as I think a very good surgeon at Harvard. But I had absolutely no medical training, or no journalistic training, rather, to write anything. As a matter of fact, when I arrived home one night and pulled out a little table and started writing longhand, and after about an hour, my wife said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing a book." She burst out laughing. He said, "You're going to do what? You don't know how to write a book. You've never had any training at all." And she was right. For about 2 years, that book never was published. And finally, it was published by the University of Toronto Press. And that was a great success. But the following year, I wrote a book called On Being a Woman, and it was a great success. I found myself on television shows in New York and Baltimore and Philadelphia. And and the first time I'd never been on a TV show, and I was sitting in Rockefeller Center, and the producer of the show, I think, trying to put me at ease. But he said, you know, doctor, you've been very lucky to be in the Bess Myerson show. You're going to be seen in a few minutes by 40 million people. And I nearly wet my pants. But then after that time, I've done a lot of TV shows and so forth. But that was quite an experience.
So, to a young person who looks at your life and goes, "Wow, you've led an exemplary life and had an extraordinary career," what would you say is that element about you that allowed you to be able to continue to grow professionally and intellectually throughout your career?
I guess I was never quite an extent of standing still and getting involved in other things. But medicine was always, I remember sitting in the steps in Niagara Falls and seeing the doctors who drive up to the hospital. And I got to know some of them. And one day, one of the doctors said, you know, you're always here watching us when we come in. Would you like to go into the operating room? And I was delighted. And that got me on I always wanted to be a surgeon. And I was amazed at some of the instruments I saw were not quite what I thought it was going to be like. But anyway, I'm looking around, and I always liked to travel. And when I was in Niagara Falls in Toronto, I did a lot of travel writing at the same time. I would find out where I wanted to go to a convention, and if I'm going to go at the convention, why don't I write a story about what's going on? And so I traveled the world doing that, and I've also traveled the world OOPM on other people's money.
Well,
I always traveled first class and business class, and stayed in the good hotels, and being in Paris to look at the Eiffel Tower is one thing, but being in Paris to interview an important doctor and doing research, that makes it a hell of a lot better.
Well, you've had quite an extraordinary career. Thank you for giving us a little glimpse into what a thrilling ride and great contribution that you made. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. Thank you.